Good morning, everyone. I am walking back from dropping my son off at school, and I just wanted to talk about promised lands. And we wander around the desert for a long time, and then there comes a point where we have to make a choice. Are we gonna believe God and go into our promised land, or are we going to keep wandering around in the desert? And we have this misconception that when we start getting into the promised land, that it's going to be easy and better, but the truth is that it's still filled with battles, and it's scary, and there's a lot of things that we have to face as we go into our promised land. The land that God was going to give the Israelites had enemies on it. They were going to have to get them off of that land, you know? But before they even faced their enemies, they had to face an impossible situation, which was having to cross the Jordan River. And we think like, oh yeah, they crossed it, the Lord dried it up, but they didn't know that was going to be the case. And so starting into their promised land actually didn't start off that easy. They had to go into those waters without knowing for sure that God was going to rescue them and make a way for them. And going into our promised lands, I think, are going to feel the same way. It's a good land that God's preparing for us, but we're going to have to do some things. And then what God tells them to do as they're crossing that Jordan River is to pick up stones of remembrance, because what they were going to do with those stones was build an altar for what God had done for them during that time. And so as we're going into those places and we're seeing God do impossible situations, we need to pick up little things that we're going to need to remember what God had done for us. This was basically the message that I shared at the women's retreat down in San Diego. And the Lord was like, okay, now you talked about it, now you're gonna live it. So with this whole moving thing, it's like I have to actually do now this thing where I'm looking at this impossible situation and there's no way that I can make it happen. There's no way that I can do it. So as I move towards those waters that seem impossible to move, I'm gonna just plan to pick up those stones as we go and make a remembrance of how God did the impossible on our behalf. So here's part 2 of this day. You guys know that I say a lot that I don't want my feelings to be the boss of me. My feelings are so strong and I let them boss me around a lot. And I put up the first vlog this morning on Instagram, and a new friend of mine basically called me out. And my first reaction, of course, is to be self-defensive. Like, you don't know me. But I wanted to write all this stuff, and instead I went and started praying about it, about what she said. And what she said was basically, stop confessing that you're overwhelmed and that you're scared. No, you confess that God is good, and you confess that He's going to be faithful, and you confess that He's going to provide over and above. And I'm not going to be the friend that's going to let you sit there and say, I'm afraid and I'm overwhelmed. And she's right. And I randomly went on my YouTube and found some old videos that I had done on Instagram Live. And I think it hurt so bad because I've learned this. I know this. I've walked this out in my life. And as I was talking to the Lord about it, I felt like it was a moment of correction from Him as I pressed into the idea of what she was saying. because as I looked at these old videos that I had made on this topic, one of them was about how we test the Lord. And I always used to think that the way we tested the Lord was like putting him to the test, like for signs, you know, like just prove yourself. But when I did a word search about this, like a couple summers ago, about testing in general, that the Israelites tested the Lord over and over again in the wilderness by their grumbling and complaining. And I just caught the very beginning of a video that I had done, and it was about Hebrews 3, I believe, and that the Israelites, some of them never entered his rest because of their unbelief, in this whole video about rest. And I just felt like the Lord was like, am I the Lord of your life or not? That's enough of this. And being disciplined by anyone or corrected by anyone does not feel good. But I think more than I feel like sad that I had to be disciplined is the idea that I feel like I should know better. And I feel sad that I let him down. And yeah, this is a new situation. And yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with us moving. But I do know my God. And I just put a post up about that. But the thing is sometimes I separate what I say I believe and how I act, if that makes sense. And the fact of the matter is that I let my doubt and insecurity affect what I say in front of my children. I let it affect my attitude with my husband. And a lot of times I put him in the place of, how are you going to make this better? And blame him. And I just had this overwhelming, like, pap from the Lord today of thinking, you want to serve me, then you have to walk submitted and knowing that you don't know what I'm doing, but I'm God and you are not, Ashley. Are you going to trust me? And I think I say, yeah, I am going to trust him, but the matter is in how I'm behaving, because if my behavior doesn't reflect that I'm trusting him, then I'm not. And I honestly don't have the strength or the ability to be some kind of superhuman Christian, but that's why I have to go to him and say, Lord, help me. And that's what I did this morning, of saying, Lord, I am yours. I am yours, and I do believe you, and I'm going to start acting like I believe you, because I see, and I don't want to have to be in a long season of correction. I just want to hear his voice and change. And that's always the choice that we have, is he can teach it to us the long way and the hard way, or we can listen to him and just do it and listen to his word. And I don't want to have a stubborn, hard, calloused heart that trusts more in what I see than who my God is. And he led me. I had a credit on my Audible account, and I was like, I just looked up Beth Moore, because every other book I've been looking recently for that hasn't been on there that I've wanted to listen to. So I just looked her up, and there was a book about destroying strongholds on there and praying God's word. And I think it's more of like a devotional book rather than something that you actually listen to audio. But I was listening to it, and the thing is that I do want him to destroy these strongholds in my life. I don't want to live in unbelief. I don't want to be an unbelieving believer who says something with their mouth, but in their actual reality, it's not real. And I'm just confessing and repenting and saying, that is me. That has been me in this situation. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to him for all that he's taken me through. And still, yeah, I want to throw a fit. I'm still throwing this, this fit. So I'm listening to this book, and, the idolatry of being more confident in what I can see and what I understand, and doubting in the fear that I allowed to come over me, rather than saying, no matter how it looks, I'm moving forward. Because it's so easy to say that on the other side. After you've crossed the Jordan River, God is faithful, he's done it, but it's before he's done the work. That's the hard part. That's the place, right? That's the place where I was telling him, Joshua wasn't spreading bad reports amongst the Israelites. Those days were over now. Now they were going to go forward, and they were going to do what God said. Not question what God said. Just do it. And that is so strong to me. Stop doubting. Just believe. Stop doubting. Just believe. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Through God's strength, because in my weakness, he's strong. So I'm just giving him my weakness, saying, I still feel these feelings, but I'm not going to let this overpower my whole life. Are you kidding me? We've come too far for this to go back around this dumb mountain. So for my message that God's sent to me today, I just want to encourage you as well. Stop doubting and just believe.